Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So the theme of the past couple of years has been inflation. And things have gotten expensive. Amen? Amen. So when you think of things that have gotten expensive, what's at the top of our list right now? Thank you. That was not planned. Eggs are very expensive. So you go back a year ago, I looked this up, and the average cost of eggs, anybody want to take a guess? $2.50 a dozen, average cost of eggs. Now it's $6.25. So someone do the math. How much have eggs gone up over the past year? How many cents? How many dollars and cents? $3.75. Now I'm going to get into a little bit of trouble because I want you to take a step back with me. Because even if you eat a dozen eggs a week, and if you do, I want you to get your cholesterol checked. Even if you eat a dozen eggs a week, that is $3.75 times 4. That is $11 a month. And I'm not saying $11 a month isn't nothing. I'm not saying $11 a month is not a meaningful amount for people here in this room, for people joining on Zoom. But I also want to say that Netflix is $18 a month, and no one is out there with pitchforks with Netflix. To which my vegans in the room might say, well, now is a time, what?
For just eggs.
To stop eating eggs. To which the omnivores in the room say, I like eggs. Well, let me tell you this. So this week's Torah portion, for our vegans in the room, I know there's one who I adore, admire. This is a Torah portion that is only barely vegan-friendly. Parshat Tzav, we have a list of offerings, a list of things that are sacrificed as a part of our ancient temple service. 2 of them are vegan-friendly, and the rest are not. So we're just going to go up the list of the expensive offerings. So at the very bottom, the least expensive offering is a meal offering. So a handful of flour or 2. That is our meal offering. A little bit more expensive here, we have our oil offering. Above that, now we're getting into the omnivore offerings. We have the offering of a dove. And then after that, hold on to this one, we have an offering of a lamb. We're going to come back to this. An offering of what? A lamb. After lambs, we got sheep. After sheep, we have rams. And way up here, we've got oxen. We're not going to talk about them. I do want to talk about a verse in our Torah portion that teaches that there should be a perpetual fire burning on the altar. It shall not go out. That on the altar should be a perpetual fire, not to go out. So our rabbis look at this passage and they go back to a different part of our Torah where we learn about this fire that never goes out. This is the fire of the daily offering, follow me for a minute, of a lamb in the morning and a lamb at night. That's our daily, that's how the fire keeps burning perpetually. So the question that our rabbis ask about this week's Torah portion is, what happens when lambs get expensive? What happens when lambs get expensive? And they tell a very difficult story of our people's past. For those of you who know Jewish history, Jerusalem has been under siege a great many times. And our sages in our Talmud point to a time when Jerusalem, the holy city, was under siege. Now, what's a siege? Right? A siege, an outside army, prevents all food, all water from coming in, and prevents all the people inside from leaving. And so basically the inhabitants of Jerusalem were starving to death. The point is that they could take over the city, our enemies could take over the city without firing a shot. That's a siege. And so the rabbinic question, and this, welcome to the rabbinic mind, is what do we do about the daily offering when there are no lambs to offer? Do you follow this? Yeah, so that's, welcome to the Talmud. So, it's a fascinating story. What they teach is that the Israelites in Jerusalem would place 2 boxes of gold, place them down the ramparts on ropes, and into the hands of our enemies. And our enemies, in exchange, would place in these boxes lambs to lift and for us to offer. And the reason I'm sharing this story is that a lamb went from being something profoundly normal and not expensive at all to now costing a box of what? Of gold. So what happens when things get expensive? What happens when things get expensive? And that's the question that I've been thinking a lot about, especially this week. We had a a wonderful rabbi, Rabbi Nama Daphne, who was here last week. Was anybody here for Shabbat last week? Beautiful. She gave a brilliant sermon. She's a fantastic rabbi. She's a rabbi at our sister congregation, Or Chadash, in Haifa. And she and I were planning just a few days ago a joint Washington Hebrew Or Chadash event. Stay tuned for that. And we suggested for a moment that we could do this event for us on Saturday afternoon, which means for Israel time, that would be Saturday what? Evening. For those of you who've been to Israel, it's 6 or 7 hours ahead, depending. It would be in the evening. So we suggested Saturday afternoon. And she said, we can't do Saturday evening. I said, why? She reminded me that Saturday night, she said, is when we protest. Do you know what she's talking about? So in Israel, for those of us who are focused only on national news, there's news happening outside as well, where for the past years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands sometimes, of Israelis are out protesting every Saturday night. Every Saturday night. That is when they protest. She said, oh my God, wouldn't it be great to get our Saturday nights back? But not yet. And I share this with you for two reasons. The first is, on Monday also, we had a different side of the political spectrum in Israel. We had the prime minister and the president in the red ties and the matching, and that was happening in the Oval Office. But there's this whole other side to Israel that I want to share with you that is relative to its population, one of the largest and longest sustained protest movements in the history of democracy. Meaning that there are a huge percentage of Israel who is out marching every Saturday night because this country means something to them. And they are willing to give up at least a night of their life every week, and often much more, to defend it. So we, and I'm not being judgy here because I do the same thing, maybe have a different approach to when we get upset about what's happening in international politics. You might, I don't know what your politics are, read something from Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity, and then you go downstairs and you're really mad about whatever's happening in the country. You're really, really upset. And so you make a cup of coffee and you play Wordle or whatever it's going to be, right? In Israel, there is this energy of fighting for what you believe in, because in the end of the day, good things and holy things are going to cost you something. And that's how you know that they're good, and that's how you know they are holy. I was talking to a mentor of mine just a few days ago, and he's quoted somebody, Bill Bernbach was his name, who said that a principle is only a principle. A principle isn't a principle until it costs you something. That a principle isn't a principle until it costs you something. To which you might say, well, Rabbi, look, I'm not a politico, right? I'm not reading Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity. I'm not trying to equate the two. I'm just trying to raise my kids, right? I have a wife, I have a husband, I have kids, I have a pet, I've got a dog, I've got grandkids. I'm trying to take care of the people I love, right? But the more you know about love, the more, let me tell you, it is expensive. Love is very expensive, and not just financially, but let's start there. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I was sharing the sermon idea with him. He said, oh, yeah, like that dog we adopted, he said. We don't have a dog. But like that dog we adopted, he said we adopted her for $50, and now thousands of dollars of surgery later, she's okay, right? I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I remember we had a baby, right? Do you have friends who don't have babies yet? Yeah. So I remember when we had our first child, a friend of mine who definitely did not have kids said, oh, wow, how are you going to afford the diapers? To which I said, how are we going to afford college? Or do you know how many diapers college costs? Right? So the having the baby is just the beginning. And for those of you who are married or are getting ready for a wedding, there's some of you around here, your wedding is going to be a very expensive day in your life. It's going to cost you a lot. But that is just the beginning. And now allow me to not be financial for a moment. But that person who you say, I do to, might ask of you throughout your life to move to a city that you don't want to move to. That person might need you to take a job you are not overqualified for, because that's what they need you to do. That's what you need to do for your family and for the people you love. That person might need you by their hospital bed. That person might need you to fight for rehab for insurance companies. That person you say, I do too at your wedding, that's just the beginning. Love will cost you a tremendous amount. And just to prove the point, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. And this might be a terrible idea, but bear with me for a minute. I'm going to ask you to don't click on anything yet, to take out your cell phone. And don't do the Twitch to the social media or anything. Take out your cell phone for a minute. Trust me. I want you, and if it's off, fine, but you get the idea. I want you to open up your favorites. Don't do anything else. Open up the people who you call often, more than anyone else. And I want you to look at this list. Let's do it. Every one of these people is going to cost you something. Every one of these people is going to need something, a great deal from you throughout your lifetime. Now put your phones away. Nothing else. But the more people you have in your life, the more expensive life becomes. They're going to ask of you. Let's bring it back. They're going to ask of you forgiveness. They're going to ask of your patience. They're going to ask of your kindness when you don't feel like giving it. They're going to ask and need so much from you, to which you might say, it's enough. Wouldn't life be easier without all these people who need something from me? But let me tell you this, the only thing more expensive than love is having a life without people who need something from you. And that's what makes a holy thing holy. A holy thing in the end will give you more than you could possibly give to it in return. And that's the message of Passover. And I want you to follow this for a moment. We're going to wrap up here. Because redemption came at a cost. Now we celebrate redemption by saying we were slaves and now we are free. Isn't that wonderful? But let me tell you, for the people who left Egypt, to leave Egypt meant you had to give up everything. Everything. To leave Egypt meant, yes, that you weren't a slave anymore, but you didn't know where your next meal was going to come from. You didn't know where your next jug of water was going to come from. You didn't know where you were going. You did not know how it would end. To leave Egypt meant you gave up everything for something on the other side. To leave Egypt meant you had to give up everything, which is why, and this is one of my favorite teachings that I want to share with you. I've shared this once on the Bema before, that not all the Israelites left. Did you know this? It's one of our rabbinic teachings that, in fact, only 1 in 5 may have left. Our rabbis teach maybe it was only 1 in 50, or maybe even it was only 1 in 500. Because to give something up, to give what costs you for something that you love, it is one of the most difficult decisions that you could ever possibly make. But I want to tell you that redemption is on the other side. That a holy thing asks you to give of yourself, but in the end of a life well lived, gives you back so much more. So on this Erev Passover, as we lead into this moment of redemption, tell me, show us, the people you love, what you are willing to give. And I'll show you just how close to redemption you can be. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.